Sometimes boating is nothing more than fun and games, us getting out there and enjoying ourselves on the water behind the helm of the vessel, but other times that fun and games will turn and sometimes we'll take quite the beating while we're out there, just like some of the things we'll witness in this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Washington State, where this was the scene just a little over a week ago, when an old bayliner had been left abandoned in a local lake in Washington State. According to locals who lived in the area, they claimed that the vessel had been sitting on the bottom of the lake for over 6 weeks, leaking fuel and oil into the local waters. Residents had all come together and alerted the local DNR and other county officials of the vessel being there and the nuisance and pollution that it was causing. But unfortunately, after 6 weeks of sitting there appeared to be no progress in getting anybody to come remove the vessel, which unfortunately here in the United States is quite the common practice. Most local municipalities and even states as a whole do not have a whole lot of repercussion when it comes to derelict vessels being abandoned in local waterways. Many times laws actually hinder people from being able to remove these vessels due to having to try and find the owner of a vessel that could have transferred hands many times since the last time the boat was actually registered. But even to top that off, if somehow the local municipality is able to find the actual owner of the boat, many times these derelict vessels were abandoned intentionally because the owner didn't have the money to either store them, maintain them, or both, which means that they actually don't have the funds to go out there and try and salvage the vessel as well. But this is another holdup for many municipalities from actually trying to salvage these boats, is they actually don't have the funds either, as most of them don't set up reserve budgets in attempt to try and get these vessels out of lakes like we see here. But in this situation, local residents just were not having it, and they decided to go ahead and take matters into their own hands. As you can see here, they were able to successfully hook this boat up to a jet ski and get it pulled over to their local boat ramp so they could have an opportunity to try and get the vessel pulled out of the lake on their own. It really is a wild scene to watch, because I couldn't imagine a jet ski being able to pull this old bayliner this loaded down with water all the way to the boat ramp so they can then attempt to try and hook it up to a vehicle of some sort and see if they can actually pull the boat up the boat ramp and into the parking lot in an attempt to get the pollution out of the waterway. It really is a wild scene. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you guys, I do commend them a little bit for doing this, as likely this vessel was going to sit there for years. Probably years before anybody would have been able to come out and get this. Now, on the secondary part of that, I'm not condoning anybody for doing it or saying that you should go do this, because every state and local municipalities' laws are very different on how this can be approached. And I'm not even going to pretend that I know the laws in Washington, but before you ever even think about doing something like this, make sure to check your local laws and make sure that you're not going to get in trouble for pulling this one off. But this crew does wind up succeeding in the end. They wind up pulling the boat out of the lake and getting it out of their local waters. Again, props to them. Let me know in the comments though what your thoughts are on this one, if they should have waited for the local authorities to take care of it, or if they did the right thing by getting it out of the water. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Australia, where this was the scene just about a week ago when 3 fishermen had to be rescued after they wound up hitting a 12 to 15 foot wave as they were trying to exit the Gold Coast Seaway near Main Beach at about 5:30 in the morning. The images seen here show the vessel trying to make its way out when all of a sudden it gets caught in a monster wave that winds up knocking the vessel over and capsizing it, tossing the 3 fishermen into the water. Fortunately, several good Samaritans in the area witnessed the incident occur, and several jet skiers, surfers, and a few other boaters all jumped in to roll over to the boat and attempt to try and rescue the 3 fishermen. Fortunately, 2 of the fishermen were found pretty quickly, with a third one missing for almost an hour before rescuers were able to find them. Fortunately, all 3 fishermen were eventually pulled from the water without injury. But of course, you always have to check the weather before you're going out. The Bureau of Meteorology had issued a hazardous surf warning for the Sunshine Coast and Gold Coast waters during this time period, claiming that surf and swell conditions were expected to be hazardous for coastal activities such as fishing and boating. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Tampa, Florida, where this was the scene just a little over a week ago when a Hillsborough County deputy wound up rescuing a man from a sinking vessel. According to Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, a call came in from 911 claiming of an overturned boat near Spoil Island.
Are you guys able to swing by near Spoil Island on the west side? We had a crash alert where there's like a big party out there.
You had a crash alert?
Yeah, it came in like a crash alert, but it was just loud music and nothing else was heard.
Yeah. Is the North Spoil Island or the South Spoil Island?
The south one, in between like McGill. Yes, sir. In between like McGill and the island.
Like right here. Okay.
Body cam video shows the officer's arrival near Spoil Island. On his approach, he comes across a vessel that has capsized with a man floating in the water. He quickly grabs a rescue line, tosses it across the boat, and begins to pull the man safely back toward his vessel.
Hold on, sir. Hang on to the line, all right? Hang on to it. Come on. Stay right there, okay? Hold on to this line. Wrap it. You got it?
As we see from the video images here, the officer is able to successfully rescue the last person who's in the water. According to reports, there were actually 4 others on board the vessel at the time of the capsizing, but fortunately Good Samaritans in the area were able to successfully go in, pull those 4 out of the water before the officer's arrival. Fortunately, no injuries were reported during this incident. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Belgium, where this was the scene just a few days ago when a fire wound up breaking out aboard a car carrier that was reportedly carrying over 100 electric vehicles in the Belgian port of Zeeburg. The fire originated in one of the cargo decks on board the motor vessel Delphine, as seen in the images here. Crews quickly arrived to the scene and began evacuating the crew off the ship during the fire and activated the ship's automatic firefighting system. Several tug vessels were deployed to the scene as well to try and spray water on the hull of the boat to try and keep the vessel cool to try and help assist in containing the fire. Fortunately, in this situation, all crew members were successfully evacuated from the vessel without injury, except for the captain, who did choose to stay behind in an attempt to assist with firefighting efforts. But this is one of just many scenes we've seen over the last 12 to 18 months of car-carrying vessels having fires breaking out in compartments that were holding electric vehicles, which is raising concerns amongst maritime officials on possibly having to change protocols or safety procedures over vessels that are carrying EVs. Thanks for watching, crew. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram at Broncos Guru and let us know when you might see your stories over here, just like Adam Coolidge, Kevin Knight, Glenn Glover, Picasso West, Rhett Nelson, Melissa Rosie, and Larry Meter did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here. If not, we're coming to steal your drain plug.